Hello, good evening, everyone. And once again, we would like to welcome you for our webinar for tonight. And as the usual, we'll start on time at 7:05. And our speaker for tonight, Mr. Sunday Faronbi, will deliver us a training or a webinar regarding leading with emotional intelligence in remote and virtual environments. Mr. Sunny is an author, speaker, emotional intelligence coach, and coach to project managers and STEM professionals. But before we proceed to his talk, as the usual, for those who are newcomers, we know this is very important for you to know what Project Management Institute is and who are we as PMI UAE Chapter. PMI, or Project Management Institute, is the world leader who worked on our behalf to advance the project management profession worldwide. Our chapter, the PMI UAE, is the PMI's chapter in the UAE run by 100% volunteers. We are the top 5 of the chapters globally in terms of members. And we still encourage everyone who are attending right now, if you are not members yet, we still have our special promotion membership offer. Please visit our website if you'd like to join PMI UAE chapter. PMI UAE chapter is also passionate about project management, professional and personal development, networking, and education. We are very dependent on our volunteers to make our chapter activities as interactive and invigorating as possible, especially this specific webinar wherein there will be interactions with our speaker. So please, other than this webinar, we encourage you to join either as presenter, as a volunteer, or share some interesting talks as well. This is our PMI UAE chapter board. We are headed by Dr. Mohammed Al-Redha as our chapter president. And please meet our esteemed members of the board. We still have some empty slots for different managerial positions in the board. And please, if you are interested, also we encourage you to step forward and submit your intent. As a member of a PMI UAE chapter, you will benefit from these 4 streams, which are the networking, learning, knowledge sharing, career growth, and events. What we are having right now are part of the diversified webinars, and we are also holding face-to-face events already. We have survived that COVID period. Therefore, we will start moving forward mostly in our face-to-face webinars, inshallah. We also would like to introduce you our collaboration partners, and some of them are sponsors. We are holding webinars in collaboration with them, and in these webinars and face-to-face events, we are also enriching our partnership and knowledge sharing as well. So please learn about our partners. For this event, you will get 2 strategic PDUs, which will be automatically credited to you within 4 weeks. You don't need to claim it. If you don't receive it in 4 weeks, please email info@pmiuae.org. During this webinar, we also have our chat box. You can put in your questions in the chat box, which I will read towards the end of the webinar. However, we will not say that it is an interruption, but rather interaction. Our speaker, Mr. Sunny, will throw some questions to you, and please, your chats are enabled and feel free, and you are all welcome to collaborate and participate. So, without any further ado now, I will have to introduce to you our speaker, Mr. Sunny. With a career spanning more than 3 decades across 4 continents, Sunday Faronbi, or Sunny, is using the skills he developed while leading teams to enable and motivate others, to empower organizations by coaching teams and leaders to develop the skills necessary for leadership positions. Sunny speaks frequently about how you can use your emotions to work for you instead of allowing them to work against you. He is a certified emotional intelligence coach and is a member of the Maxwell leadership team of coaches and speakers. He is also the author of the book, Nothing Higher, Why You Need to Descend in Order to Soar. And he is currently an instructor of the Project Management Institute's PMI training, formerly Seminars World. My dear colleagues, I had the privilege to attend his training in Orlando, Florida in June, and it was a highly recommended training. I was asked to echo the knowledge that I learned, but then why not bring the expert himself instead? Therefore, well, please welcome our PMI members and guests, Mr. Sunday Faronbi. The floor is yours, Sunny.
Thank you very much, Irene. I hope everyone can hear me very, very clearly. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. I know it's 7 p.m. in the UAE right now, and we have people joining us from around the world, other parts of the world also. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are taking learning and growth seriously, and you are investing the time to do this. So for about 2 years now, because of the COVID pandemic, for about 2 years, more than 2 years, many of us have been working remotely. And hopefully, the scenario I'm about to describe has not been your experience during these past 2 years. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine that what I'm about to describe is your typical day when you work remotely, as you wake up in the morning. So you get up from your bed, hopefully you brush your teeth, make a cup of coffee, and then you walk over to the corner of your apartment or your home where your computer is. The moment you open your laptop, a message popped up asking you to log in and to turn on your webcam. Once you do that, the webcam takes your picture and informs you that your screenshot has been captured and sent to your manager. It also informs you that it will take your screenshot and your picture every 10 minutes for the rest of the day. Now, I've just described the first few moments of your day working remotely. How are you feeling now? What does that do to you? I want you to respond to me in the chat. How is that scenario making you feel right now? Respond to me in the chat, please. Any thoughts? I'm waiting for your thoughts in the chat. Tense, I see tense, uncomfortable, dump monitoring, depressed, weird. I see an OMG, insecure, controlled, like I'm being micromanaged, untrusted, I'm being hacked, lack of trust, robotic lifestyle. I like that one. Sad, mistrusted, under surveillance, disappointed, controlled. I'm glad you feel that way, because that's not the way to feel when you are working. And that's the situation that many people face, or maybe some are still even facing now, about 2 years after the pandemic. You see, studies show that during the pandemic, the demand and sale of surveillance tools that can monitor employees went through the roof in the last 2 years. Employee monitoring software was, they were literally flying off the virtual shelves. There were programs that would be tracking the words that employees type and snapping pictures with their webcam. And these programs would then collate all of these pictures and the information and send them to their managers with a ranking of employees who are spending too much time on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and not enough time on Excel or Microsoft projects. What this has done over the last 2 years was to erode trust, the trust that employees have in their organizations. And here's the thing about trust. It's very powerful and very, very important when it comes to productivity and employee engagement. Without trust in the organizations and their managers, guess what? Most employees become very disengaged. In fact, I believe that was the reason we saw the beginning of what was called the Great Resignation last year. And I think it's the same reason, similar reason. We are now seeing what some people are calling the quiet quitting. When people resort to doing the barest minimum and to get by on their jobs, and they don't give you that discretionary effort or the discretionary goodwill that is connected to employee engagement and retention, there is a problem. And that seems to be what we are saying right now. According to studies done by the Gallup organization, most people look to leadership, their leadership in organizations during times of uncertainty. They look to leadership to chart a path for them and to give them confidence that there is a way forward. Most of the time, however, that doesn't happen, especially when leadership and organizations don't have the answers that most people are looking for. Luckily enough, Gallup has been doing a lot of research for years on crisis, and they have found out that there are 4 universal needs that most people have of their leaders. 4 needs. These are trust, compassion, stability, and hope. So as a leader, if you are able to meet these 4 needs for the people that you lead, you are much, much far along on your journey as a leader. So let me ask you this before we go on, and I want you to respond again in the chat to me. One of those 4 needs is trust. Why do you think is important? Why do you think trust is important? Please respond in the chat. Why is trust important in organizations and in teams? Waiting for your responses. It brings openness. Thank you. There's openness. You feel safe and responsible. There's safety. All right, that's good. Teams are more collaborative. There's transparency. Trust will bring higher productivity, improves productivity. There's no effective collaboration without trust. That's great. You're feeling more heard. There's transparency. You build relationship easier when there's trust. That's good. Healthy relationship. You feel comfortable. It increases morale. Oh, I love this. You guys have all kinds of great ideas about what will happen with trust. It's important for teamwork, and I agree. It creates a friendly environment in the team. That's great. That's great. Thank you. Once again, thank you for your responses. Now, those are very excellent responses. And to add to your response, I want to share with you why the reasons why these 4 are important. Those 4. Stephen Covey said, trust is the glue of life. Is a foundational principle that holds all relationships together. Trust holds everything together. See, here's the thing about trust, though. You cannot demand that others just trust you. You can't. It's something that you build up. And it's also something that can be lost very, very quickly. Trust that is built up over many years can be destroyed just like that by one single act. According to the Pew Research Center, more than 80% of millennials will not trust you unless you build a relationship with them. And I see a few of you responded in the chat that trust helps in building relationships. That's very true. So if 80% of millennials will not trust you unless you build a relationship with them, and as of 2 years ago, as of 2020, millennials make up about 50% of the workforce globally. That's what another research shows. So what does that mean for you as a leader? It means that a huge percentage of your team will not trust you if you don't take the time to know them and to build a relationship with them. The next one is compassion. The next one of the 4. It was Mother Teresa who said, I would rather make mistakes in kindness and compassion than work miracles in unkindness and hardness. So being a leader who is compassionate means that you care about the well-being of your team members. It's also important for us as leaders to acknowledge that the times we're going through or that we went through the pandemic, they're difficult times because pressure was coming at you from all directions. Some of us are still going through that right now. When you acknowledge that and you show kindness and compassion to your team, it makes you appear authentic. It makes them gravitate more towards you. The third one is stability. Someone once said that people are looking for stability in a shaky world, and that's true. As you can imagine, many people around the world have been so shaken to their core, and they are struggling as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. When there's so much uncertainty, many employees tend to look to their leaders for stability. And you may say that's not fair because you as a leader, you're going through the same thing, right? But the fact remains that your teams are looking up to you for stability. And as a leader, you need to be able to provide the stability for them. And finally, there's hope. Napoleon Bonaparte said, a leader is a dealer in hope. When things become shaky and uncertain, every one of us can use some real inspiration, don't you think? In an environment where you and the teams you lead must work remotely, dealing in hope means reassuring them, reassuring your team members. Even though things are rough, you reassure them that things will definitely get better. They will improve. Even though you are not able to provide specific timeline for when things will turn around, we know it won't last forever. So these are the 4 things that employees, teams are looking to their leaders for. Now, in order to deliver these 4 things for your team member, those 4, trust, compassion, stability, and hope. In order to provide this and deliver this to your team, you need to understand that there are 3 basic fundamental questions that followers ask of their leaders. 3 questions. Now, whether you are working remotely or in close proximity with your team, answering these 3 questions consistently for those you lead is going to transform your leadership. It will transform you into a leader that people will want to follow. And as a leader, these are the questions that every member of your team is asking of you. Now, they may not be verbalizing them. In fact, usually they do not verbalize these questions to you. But as a leader, you must understand that these questions are being asked of you. And to be an effective leader, you must constantly work at answering these 3 questions for those you lead. I'm sure you are now wondering, what the heck are these 3 questions? Tell us about them already. Okay, here we go. Can you help me? Do you care about me? Can I trust you? 3 questions. In fact, I can almost guarantee, without knowing it, that these are the same 3 questions that everyone you and I come across that we are asking of them. As you come to this presentation today, this webinar today, these are the same questions that each one of you is asking of me. These are the questions you're asking of our hosts and the presenters. These are the questions you're asking your colleagues at work, your managers, your friends, your family. And when, as leaders, we realize that people are asking these questions of us, and we learn to constantly answer these questions for people we meet, it will go a long way to help build our influence. And that's exactly what leadership is. Leadership is influence. John Maxwell said leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. So, before I show you how to answer these 3 questions, I want you to respond to me again in the chat. Those 3 questions I gave you. Can you help me? Do you care about me? Can I trust you? Can you think of what that would do if you are able to answer those 3 questions for the people you lead? Respond to me in the questions, in the chat. I see trust. It will build trust. That's good. Definitely build trust. There will be love. Somebody say, I will feel more engaged. There will be more output. There will be empathy. You follow easily. You build followers. There will be support. They will feel connected. Your team will feel connected. Communication is key, somebody said. People will be more willing to accept and follow leadership. People will feel more secure, more connected. It will build confidence. There will be better teamwork. Oh, you guys are on fire today. I love this. I love your responses. There's a need for trust. That's great. That's great. When we are able to answer these three questions for the people that we lead, it will change the game for us. There's engagement, there's openness. I see resilience. It will build resilience within the team. We think we can overcome anything, no matter what comes our way. So this is great. Now, but I'm going to show you 7 skills. 7 skills, 7 emotional intelligence skills that will help you to answer these 3 questions. And we can use several skills to do that. As we learn, practice, and master these skills, they will help us to answer these 3 questions. These skills I'm about to share with you, they are on the EQI 2.0 model of emotional intelligence. This model of emotional intelligence contains 15 distinct skills, 15 specific skills that will help you to develop and grow your leadership presence. This model, the EQI 2.0 model, is the world's first and most widely used measure of emotional intelligence. When you take this assessment, you get a score on each of these 15 skills and tips on how to improve them that are specific to you. So from these 15 skills, I'm going to briefly introduce you to 7 of them. And these 7 skills will help you to lead your virtual and remote teams effectively. Mastering these 7 emotional intelligence skills are going to help you to answer those 3 questions. Here are the 7 of them: interpersonal relationships, empathy, flexibility, optimism, social responsibility, assertiveness, and emotional expression. Now, instead of just telling you what these skills are, and we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to show you 5 practical ways, 5 ways, practical ways in which you can practice these skills, in which you can begin to develop these skills. These 5 ways, using these 7 skills, will help you to respond to those 3 questions. 5 ways. Here are the 5 of them, 5 responses. Get to know your people. Be kind and compassionate. Don't be rigid. Communicate well and be a resource to them. Now we're going to take a close look at each one of these. So the first one is getting to know them. To be an effective leader, you must know your people. You've got to know them. Building a strong relationship with each member of your team is very important. It's very key. So you need to get to know them and know what makes them tick, what they like, what they don't like. Ask about what's important in their life. Listen to their stories. Show interest in what's important to them. I once had a team member who once told me that his wife was preparing to get ready to go to graduate school. A couple of weeks later, when I saw him again, I asked him how his wife's preparation was going. He was surprised that I remembered, but I made a note to remember. And even later, after the lady had started the grad school, I continued to ask him when I see him at work how she was doing, how she was coping. Just doing that took our relationship to a different level. He thought I could be trusted as a leader. So you need to know them, get to know them, know who is important, what's important in their lives. And you need to be intentional about this. You cannot leave it to chance. You must be purposeful and intentional about developing this relationship. It won't happen if you don't do that. One way I know very well to do this is to just schedule it. Schedule it and put it on your calendar. For example, when I was learning to develop this particular emotional intelligence skill, in Microsoft Outlook on my calendar, you will see entries like, get up, go talk to Becky. I have to do that. I do that because that's not something for me that I would do naturally. See, at that time, if you have left me to my own devices, I would not talk to anyone unless I needed to. So I put it on my calendar so that I will get reminders and I will be able to do it. Now, some of you may be naturally good at connecting with people, but still, I recommend don't leave it to chance. Plan for it, schedule it, make a conscious effort of it. One other key way you can deepen your relationships is to call them on special occasions, maybe on their birthdays or other days that are important to them, or like the birthdays of their children or their spouses, or people who are important in their lives. You know, it's always a good thing to make efforts to also remember the names, not just the names of your team members, the names of the people important to them, such as their spouses and their children. Remember their names. You know, it's more effective for you to say, tell Irene I'm wishing her a happy birthday, than something like, well, tell your wife a happy birthday for me. That's okay, nothing wrong in that. But when you use their names, it makes it much more personal. It communicates the fact that you see them as people, as important, not just as a resource on your team. Finally, you want to ensure that you personalize recognitions. When you celebrate team and individual accomplishments and recognize your team members, understand that no one size fits everything. You need to know how they want to be recognized. Some people love public recognition in front of their peers, others do not. So know their personal and individual preferences. The emotional intelligence skill that speaks to all of this that I've spoken about now is called interpersonal relationships. That's the EQI 2.0 skill. This skill is about developing mutually satisfying relationships that are characterized by trust and the ability to give and take. All right, now I have another question for you to respond to. I just gave you some examples of how to build strong relationship with your team. What else do you think you can do to build better relationship with your teams? Or what have you been doing? Apart from what I've shared, are there other things you've been doing to connect and build better relationships? Or what do you think you can begin to do? Respond to me. Celebrations, sharing events, team building activities, I like that. Delegation is also a good one. Very well. Sharing interests, yes. Personal interests. Sharing a meal, yeah, a lot of good things happen when you share a meal with someone. Go for lunch, go for dinner together. Call for a coffee chat once in a while. That's very good. A coffee chat over Zoom helps. Sometimes allowing them to take the lead. That's helpful. That's helpful. Actually, I like that. I like allowing them to take the lead. As you do this, you don't want to be forceful. You don't want to seem forced. No, you want to reach out to them and find out from them what works for them and letting them take the lead. I really like that. Say support when they are in need. That's interesting. That's good. Listen to their concerns. Appreciate them. Give them recognition. Listen. Love them. I love it. I like all of that. Thank you. Thank you once again for your responses here. Let's move on to the next one of the 5. Be kind and compassionate. So you must be kind, you must be understanding, and be compassionate. Mark Twain said that kindness is a language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And as a leader, you must learn not just to be able to speak this language of kindness. I think you must be very fluent in it. So you want to consider how your team members how they are feeling, especially given the current situation that's going on so far in the last 2 years with the pandemic. It's been almost 2 years, right? And we're still in it. Especially with new variants of the virus and the variant of Omicron, for example, that is popping out everywhere. And the fact that this pandemic continues to drag on, it can really weigh down on some people. So many people who had not worked remotely before and had to quickly adjust to working remotely about 2 years ago This may have gone on too far for them, too long for them. So you need to understand that as they are continuing to adjust to working in a virtual environment, they are going to face distractions at home. So you can allow, or you should allow, for situations where their babies, their children could interrupt your meetings. And it could be any other situation that they are going through at home. But it's very important that you consider how what they are currently going through could be affecting them. So you want to acknowledge their stress. Don't just sweep it under the rug. Don't assume you know exactly how they're feeling, because the truth is you don't. You do not know how they are feeling. And I say that because we all react to things differently. Even when we are going through the same thing, our reactions and the way we can handle them are different. So you take time to listen to their anxieties, listen to their concerns. Don't just hear what they are saying, really listen. And learn to suspend judgment about what you are hearing from them. Don't just negate their feelings. Don't just prescribe solutions. Empathize with their struggles. Empathy is a very, very powerful skill in which you share other people's emotions and their positions. You don't have to agree with them in order to empathize with them. The skill of empathy is becoming a very, very important skill for anyone in leadership. And later this year in December, at the PMI Global Summit, I actually have a presentation during the summit on empathy, because it's a very, very powerful and important leadership skill. Next, you want to give them hope. Even though things are not working well, things are not going well, you want to remind them to look beyond the current struggles and circumstances. Encourage them to look forward with hope and beyond the current situation. Remember that you are their dealer in hope. See, one way that some people do this is to find daily videos of encouragement or stories of inspiration to share with their team members. So that gives them hope. You can also give them, thank them for specific things that they are doing well. Now, this may even be a normal part of their work, but express to them that you really appreciate that they are still able to do their work despite the current difficulties. Let them know how much you appreciate them, and do it frequently, at least maybe on a weekly basis. Finally, you want to share in their joys, their successes. You can do this by acknowledging and celebrating their special occasions, new baby arrivals, birthdays, anniversaries. Some teams even provide a virtual space, a virtual online space where team members can share personal photos and videos of what's going on in their lives, in their families. Some who have virtual pizza parties. I've heard of teams that will have virtual pizza parties or virtual office parties, where the manager or the leader will send care packages to their homes, since they are working remotely, or order pizza to be delivered to their homes just before all of you meet together virtually. And then when you meet, all of you are eating the same thing, or you're enjoying the same thing together. Now, to some people, this kind of events can seem artificial or forced. But experienced managers of remote workers and the remote workers themselves have reported that virtual events like this can help them in reducing feelings of isolation, and that they promote a sense of belonging within the team. The two emotional intelligence skills that align with all of these, they are the skills of empathy and optimism. Empathy deals with having a thorough understanding of how other people feel, while optimism is the ability to be hopeful and to have a positive outlook, even when you are in the middle of setback and difficult circumstances. Okay, so here's another question for you that I would like you to respond to. I've just talked about being kind and being compassionate. In what other ways can you show kindness? In what other ways can you show kindness to your team? What else can you do? Encourage their small achievements. I like that. That's good. By listening to them, very good. Appreciating their efforts. Yes. Show concern for what they are going through. Yes. That's true. That's great. Those are great. Support them even when they make mistakes. That's a huge one. Supporting them when they make mistakes. No, giving sound and reasonable advice, solving problems. Be flexible. I like that. Be flexible, not a one-way street. Sympathize without over-exaggeration. I love that one too. Giving gifts. Recommend promotions. That's good. Be a good listener. Simply talk to them. Thank you. Thank you also for all those responses. Let's move on to the next one. Number 3. The third practical way is to avoid being rigid. So you must be flexible. You need to be flexible. Remember that things change and unforeseen circumstances can come up. Things beyond people's control can come up. So you want to acknowledge the difficulty of working remotely under stressful conditions. Don't just tell them to suck it up. And don't say that you're not the first person to go through this. As I said before, we all react to things differently. Most people may have a lot going emotionally. And you may not know that because you are not seeing them on a daily basis. While that's not an excuse for them for not getting their job done, but it's a reason for us to reconsider what productivity really means. Does it mean getting the work done, or does it mean punching in for 8 hours and sitting at your desk 8 hours a day? So you want to trust your team. Give them the freedom, the flexibility that they need to get the work done on a schedule that will help them to be much more productive. You should be willing to change. Be willing to change your plans to meet changing conditions, changing circumstances. Remind yourself that plans do change. So be ready for the opportunity that the change may bring. Always tell yourself, remind yourself that change is a good thing. It can be good for you. And finally, you want to be able to stand up for your team. Defend their work whenever you can and to whomever you can. Even when they make a mistake, don't just throw them under the bus. You can acknowledge to your superiors that your team dropped the ball, but please do not throw one person under the bus without having a very, very strong reasons to do so. As you can imagine, the emotional intelligence skill that deals with all of this is called flexibility, the skill of flexibility. This skill is about being able to adapt our emotions, our thoughts and behaviors when we are dealing with change and uncomfortable situations. The next one is to communicate. This is really a no-brainer. And I've seen in some of your responses, some people have mentioned communication. This is a no-brainer. As leaders, we must be able to communicate effectively. And it's very important for us, especially as project managers. I once had someone say that 90% of a project manager's responsibility is to communicate. So it's important that we learn how to do it well. And I'm sure you've taken a lot of communication classes, listened to webinars and seminars. So I'm not going to belabor the point here, other than to remind you of a few things, just a few things. You need to communicate clear goals and expectations to your team for the projects they are working on. You want to help them figure out what they should do and create realistic expectations for their work. This is important because you don't have the benefits of seeing them on a daily basis when they are working remotely. Help them understand what's important and how their success will be measured, but also give them space. Don't cramp their style, as they normally say. Give them space to complete their work. You also want to provide them information. Part of communication is providing information that is useful and important to them to do their work. Share any first-hand information you have directly with them. Openly and honestly share what you know and tell them if you don't know or what you can find out for them. It's always a good idea to also provide feedback. Let them know how they are doing. especially how it's measured against expectations that you have previously communicated. Manage the frequency of your communication with them. Let them know how often you are going to be communicating with them. Is it daily or weekly or every other week? The two emotional intelligence skills associated with this are called assertiveness and emotional expression. Assertiveness is about communicating your thoughts and feelings in ways that are non-offensive and socially acceptable. Emotional expression, on the other hand, deals with being able to communicate your emotions constructively in ways that are not hurtful to other people. Finally, as a leader, you want to be a good resource for your team. Make sure they have everything that they need. Provide the resources. Computers are a given. Software, mobile devices, high-speed internet connections. As much as possible, remove barriers and obstacles that may be in their way. And you can ask them, what are the obstacles in your way? How can I help you get rid of them? What resources, what tools do you need? Are you missing any information? Are you struggling with something that can offer support on? And this includes some personal stuff. It may mean helping them with personal development or professional development, or doing what you can to help them advance their careers. And finally, if you promise to do something, please, please, please follow through. Follow through on what you promise. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, erodes trust faster than promises that are not fulfilled. So please do what you say you are going to do. The emotional intelligence skill that relates to all of this is called social responsibility. This skill has to do with being helpful to others without expecting anything in return. Now, let me go back to that last point I made about following through on what you promised and ask you a question here. What happens if you don't follow through? Respond, please, in the chat. What happens if you promise and you do not follow through? What do you think can happen? There'll be loss of trust, loss of credibility. Yes. They will also start doing the same thing. Yeah, you model what you see. That's true. They won't believe you the next time. They don't trust you. Loss of trust. Yes, I see a lot of trust. Loss of trust. Trust, like we said, is the foundation for leadership. And if you don't follow through, guess what? You will lose trust. You will lose respect. That's very important. Thank you for your responses. So to summarize, here again is a recap of the 5 ways. So there are 5 ways in which you can respond to those 3 questions. And you can see the skills that is tied to each one of them. So number 1, get to know them. That's interpersonal relationships. Be kind and compassionate. That's empathy and optimism. Don't be rigid. That's flexibility. Communicate well. That's assertiveness and emotional expression. And be a resource to your team. That's social responsibility. Finally, I want to encourage you to put some of these things that you've learned here today to use. Hopefully, you have been able to pick up 1 or 2 things that will be helpful to you. But please, please, I beg you, don't do what many of us tend to do when we go to a conference, we attend a course, we go to a seminar or a webinar like this. We get some useful tips and information, and what do? We take notes, and then we file them away. We file them away, we forget about them. That information you file away is not going to do you any good. And you know why? The reason is that we lead from who we are and not from what we know. We lead from who we are and not from what we know. What you know does you no good. You have to turn what you know into who you are for it to be beneficial to do. How do you do that? How do you turn what you know into who you are? By practicing it. You practice and practice and practice. And you continue to practice what you know until it becomes a habit. When it has become a habit, That means you can now do it without much effort, without thinking about it. When it's a habit, it has become part of who you are. Once it becomes who you are, it begins to flow naturally from you, and it shows in your behaviors. Then you begin to lead from it without much effort. So I recommend that you put this to practice. So you need to continually learn about emotional intelligence skills and to put your learning into practice. Now, I share with you briefly 7 of the skills. But if you want to know more about this skill, details about these skills or the other remaining skills, I invite you to join me. Join me in the PMI training seminar, Emotional Intelligence for Project and Program Leadership from PMI Training, formerly called Seminars World. The next session is in December, just after the Global Summit. The Global Summit happens from Thursday to Saturday. The following week is the week of the PMI training in Las Vegas. So if you are going to be at the Global Summit, you can just add an additional week to your stay for 2 days of the class and then enjoy Las Vegas for the rest of the days. Additional dates are available for next year, but they are not announced yet. PMI training will announce that towards the end of the year. Also, whether you're able to make it to Las Vegas or not, if your goal is to develop your entire team or within your organization, we can bring the seminar to you. We can bring the seminar to your company, to your organization. Actually, if you have a lot of people and you don't want to send all of them to the class, we can bring it to you if you have team members to participate. Also, as a chapter, your PMI local chapter, we can also bring it to your chapter if there are enough members that have interest. We can bring it also to you. So please reach out to me for more information about that. Also, you can get a copy of my book, Nothing Higher, Why You Need to Descend in Order to Soar. The whole premise of this book is about the importance of humility in leadership as we lead our teams and how powerful humility is. I spoke to a lot of people in the research for this book, and there are a lot of very good ideas and the importance of humility in how it translates to our leadership. The book is available from Amazon in paperback, hardcover, ebook, and audiobook format. Also, Amazon is actually currently running a special promotion. It started yesterday. It's going to end tomorrow. So going to end in about 20 hours, I believe. They are running a special promotion on the book, on the Kindle version, just the Kindle version. They are making it available for only 99 cents in the US marketplace, or 99 pence, 99p in the UK marketplace. That promotion, as I said, ends in about 20 hours. So try and take advantage of it while it lasts. Finally, if you would like to reach out to me for information or additional help in developing emotional intelligence for you and your team members, you can reach out to me at that link, tinyurl.com/helpmesunny. Go there and send me information. Somebody on my team will reach out to you. Or you can also just send me an email. My email address is there. And finally, I'm open to connection to you on LinkedIn. Some of you already over the last week have been sending connection requests. So I'm open to connection with you on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Also, I usually post daily. Most days I post daily on LinkedIn on emotional intelligence and leadership topics. And I also send out weekly newsletters to those on my mailing team. So that's all I have for you for today. I think we have some time to take questions. So Irene, what questions do we have?
Yes, thank you very much, Sunny. I remember our two-day training, the two-day training that I attended with you. Really, to our attendees here, it is, I cannot say more than, it's highly recommended. And during that training, I also had the chance to receive my emotional intelligence assessment, right, Sunny?
Yes, the report. Yeah.
Okay, so they are asking, you prefer sunny or Sunday?
It doesn't matter. Either one is fine. Either one is okay.
Okay, now I have a question here. First, I need to read something from Sumit. I think this is a comment rather than a question. It is true in one of the project, one person see alienated because we were not involving him in any discussion. So it is really important that you get the people involved. It's a way of entrusting or delegating or
Yes,
making him feel welcome, right?
that's
So
true.
guide them also in their work. A question from Diraj. It's okay, a bit lengthy, but I will summarize it. So he has a close friend who became a team member, a very jolly, happy person. But when he came, he had a vacation, and then when he came back, he's a different person. So Diraj, is saying, I'm concerned for him as a friend and a leader, and I asked our company therapist to have a session with him. Will this spoil our relationship?
So if I had a question correctly, you have a friend who
Mm,
now become a team member and you are
yes.
concerned about something. I don't know exactly what that is. And then you
Mhm.
are recommending that your friend sees a company therapist. Is that what I hear?
Yes. So will
Um,
that person, his former friend, still a friend, but now colleague, will that person feel offended that or it will break the relationship, you know?
yeah. Well, I think I'm not sure. It depends on who the person is. But what I would have recommended is to talk to your friend first, to talk to your friend and see where he or she needs the help, where they need help.
Mhm.
So having that engagement, having that discussion with him, if he's not the person, and I believe this person asking this question, maybe the friend is the kind of person who is likely not to want to go see a therapist, maybe for cultural reasons, for whatever reason, personal reasons. Some people do not like to to go uh, air their dirty laundry outside in front of a therapist. They may not want to do that. So if maybe that's the kind of person, you as a friend that they will listen to, you can talk to them. So I would
Mhm.
have recommended you talk to them first, see what's going on with them, and hopefully, if you know that they are the kind of people who are usually resistant to seeing a therapist, then you will have done your homework to be able to
Mhm.
find out the benefits of talking to someone that is a therapist. And then you go with them and talk to them and convince them, try to convince them that you recommend that they talk to a therapist and ask what you can do to help facilitate that. If you don't do that before you go recommend to
A
before
therapist.
you either talk to somebody in the organization that they need
Mhm.
to see a therapist, that
Mhm.
may be seen as uh, what we call tattletale here. You know, you are telling
Mhm.
on them, you are leaking
Yeah.
their secret, and that may not be seen very well. So my recommendation is you talk to them first. You reach out
Yes.
with them for you use your personal relationship to connect with them before and you during that discussion you recommend that they see someone, they talk to someone
Mhm.
before you recommend it.
Yeah, I agree with that because at least in that case as well, approaching the person first before you endorse to someone will show your empathy to that
Yes,
person and
definitely.
your emotional expression as well. Another question here from Sumit. You said a leader should provide resources, but if due to budget constraint they are not able to provide resources, what they should do. You know, when it comes to budget, it will impact everything, your
Yes.
products, your services, or even recruiting people. So,
Well, that's interesting because I'm not sure when I say resources, I'm not sure what the person who is asking this question is hearing. If it's a resource that the person needs to do their job, there's no money to do this is not an excuse. I'm sorry to say that if that seems harsh. There is no money. We're talking about somebody working remotely. What do they need to work remotely? They need a high-speed internet connection. Now, I know there are organizations who may say that, well, most people already have high-speed internet connection in their homes already. You can use yours. No, I don't have to use mine for your work. I don't have to pay for that. So most organizations realize that they have to, even if the people have it already, maybe they give them a portion of how much it costs for monthly internet connection, since they are working remotely. That's one. Computers, it's a given. You need a computer. You need maybe a phone or mobile devices. You need some resources, some basic resources are needed. So when I say resources, that's what I mean. It's things that you definitely need to do your work, to connect, and to be able to do things very well in your work. I'm not talking about extra things that is not really needed. Maybe they want it, but I will tell you this. When I was still a project manager and still leading project teams, one of the things I try to do for my teams, usually, and I believe that most projects still have that. As project manager, you still have discretionary funds. You have funds that is discretionary that you can use. You have the freedom to use it any way you want, as it should be part of your budget. I knew I had that, and looking at the situation, we are talking about empathy and optimism skills here. If I see that this may be something that will definitely help drive the engagement of this person or for them, and I think I have enough on my discretionary funds to be able to do that, I will do that for them. Okay. I will do that for them. I always share in the seminar, sometimes when there's time allowed, in my seminar, I share the story of a team member, one of the engineers on my team that we asked for from Germany, who came here with his wife and with his child to spend more than 6 months on my project I was leading here. And they told him from Germany that he could not have a rental car. And I told him, we will pay for your rental car. Okay. So there are things like that you have to look at it and say, okay, do I have the funds for it? If it's resources that they really need, that's non-negotiable. Okay. Once again, internet connection, computer, those are resources. But there may be other things that you may say, should they have it or should they not have it? For me, if I think it will drive the engagement of that person, it will help their commitment, I will find a way to get it for them. Now, if I don't have the discretionary funds to do that, then I'll have that discussion with them. It's not just a simple or a matter of simply saying, no, you cannot have this. It's a matter of sitting with them and helping them understand why it's not possible for them to have it, especially at that time. And if there's something you can do to champion their cause to higher ups so that you can get that thing for them, you begin to do that.
Okay. Sunny, I need to manage my time as well because I have a lot of questions here for you. Okay. Then I'll try to combine those who are related as much as I can. Okay, here's one. What is the difference between kindness and empathy? This is from Mehak Khalid. At the same time, I will also add the difference in the same way. What is the difference between flexibility and agility? Okay, so empathy and kindness, the difference, and then flexibility and agility. And I don't know whether this is still related. This is from Subhari. Where do you draw the line between providing empathy and getting a little too personal, especially when between a manager and a team member? So I think those things regarding empathy, they are all related. So succinctly, because we have a lot of questions, you need to answer them all.
Okay. Please. All right. We'll try our best. Okay. Very, very quickly. I will say empathy. Empathy is a skill set. Empathy is a skill set. Showing kindness is one of the ways you show that skill set. So kindness is kind of embedded in empathy, if I can say it succinctly like that. Talking about flexibility and agility, also it's similar. Flexibility has to do with our aversion to change. And the person who is asking about agility, I don't know if you are asking about agility in terms of agile project management in that sense, which has to do with all these sprints and quick changes and things like that. But flexibility as an emotional intelligence skill has to do with how responsive you are to change. When things change in general, how responsive you are to it. What was the third part? The third part you were asking.
The other one was about how do you deal with people who don't have empathy in your team or peer group?
Was that the question? I thought you. I'm thinking it's something else.
No, it's also about empathy. So how do you deal with people who don't have empathy in your team or within your peer group?
Okay, that's a very quick response, and it may sound kind of cocky. Send them to a class, send them to a training to to learn about empathy. Really, really, that's the way it is. You provide opportunities for them. One of the things that I've learned about teams is that team engagement rises when we develop our team members. So this emotional intelligence skills we are talking about is not just for you as the leader of your team, it's also for your team members. So when your team members learn the skills and they understand how important it is, they will learn to be able to grow in those skills also. So for people who don't have it, I would say share what you know with them, but much more importantly, send them to a class. Send them to Las Vegas to my presentation.
Interesting. Now I have a question here, very interesting. And how do you empower women leadership in the Middle East community?
That's a tough one.
Yes, because this is some cultural related
yes.
aspect of it. Yeah, you understand it.
Exactly.
It's from Amal Ali. Thank you for the question. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of deep cultural connotations that is in that. But I believe that things are changing. I believe that things are changing a lot, and I think women, ladies that you are talking about, women developing the skills, developing emotional intelligence skills, and engaging people with those skills could be one of the ways where we can begin to break down this cultural influences. The truth is that the culture will always be with us. Our culture will always be with us. But when we are able, not forcefully, I don't know things that have changed really very well by using force. But when we are able to use emotional intelligence skills to engage with the people, we begin to see some of these strong cultural influences fade away to help women or female leadership help them to be much more engaged.
Yeah, because we're talking about trust and respect here. Sometimes, even if the other parties have trust and respect to the women leadership, there is a feeling of the cultural thing that they are not being given an opportunity to be empowered. Yeah. So I hope that answered your question, Amal. Very interesting question. I'm switching between chat and the Q&A. So I'm screening the questions on the chat because there are a lot of thank you in there for you, Sunny. I have a question, Anonymous. Please suggest a strategy how EQ can help in times of team members conflict.
In terms of conflict?
Yes, conflict.
It's the way you approach it. It's the way you approach conflict. When there is conflict, I mentioned briefly the skill of flexibility. Conflict is a change from the norm, but it's how we approach it. Conflict can be a good thing. In fact, in many cases, conflict is a good thing. So as leaders, we need to, first of all, change our mindset about what conflict is. We think it's something that we don't want. Conflict means that your team members care enough. They care enough about the progress and the success of your team. That's why they speak out. You do not want a situation where people just tend to be agreeing with one another, or people just keep quiet and not say something that is bothering them. You don't want that at all. So, in fact, sometimes a leader can find a way to provoke conflict, to bring different ideas out, because out of conflict, opportunities come. So we just need to change our mindset about what conflict is. And when we change our mindset about it, then the way we approach it, the way we deal with it is also going to be different. And some of the skills that we talked about skill of flexibility, for example. Stress tolerance is another skill. I didn't mention that. Stress tolerance is another skill that can help you to be able to change our view, the way we see conflict, and to manage them better.
So it's also the same answer to Bassem Othman's question. Would you please advise the team how is it possible to deal with hard managers? So it's the same thing applies as you just mentioned.
It's similar. Yes, similar. That's true.
Okay, thank you for that question, Bassem. Another question from, okay, how do you draw the line, thin red line, between compassion and spoon feeding with office employees?
Compassion and spoon feeding. All right. I think
Yeah.
I got an idea of what the person is trying to ask here. And okay, without giving away what my presentation is in Las Vegas about empathy, some of the things that we call empathy, and I'm going to uncover that in that presentation. Some of the things that many of us call empathy is not really empathy, and that's the thing. What we call empathy is not empathy. Some of those are what we call the near enemies of empathy. That means they look like empathy, they sound like empathy, but they are not. They are not empathy. For example, sympathy. Sympathy is not the same thing as empathy. When you talk about compassion, pity, having pity for somebody is a near enemy of compassion. It sounds like compassion, but it's not. So the problem with what you're asking, what that question is this. What many of us tend to give out to people tend to be the near enemies of empathy. It's not empathy. And when we do that, people tend to come for more. They tend to come for more. Those who love those kind of things, they come for it, they like it, they gravitate towards it. So the way to solve that, it's not to give them these near enemies of empathy and to show them real empathy. So we don't have a lot of time. That's a whole 1 hour presentation that I just summarized.
Okay. There's another question here, very interesting. How do we get trained and certified in emotional intelligence? Any recommended bodies?
If you want to be trained, what do you mean by trained and certified? You mean as an emotional intelligence coach like I am, or just learning the skill of emotional intelligence? I'm not sure. But when you're talking about certification, you're probably talking about certification as a coach. If you're interested in that, I say reach out to me personally. I will give you information on how I became certified, how I got my certification, and I can recommend some sources to you. But apart from becoming a certified emotional intelligence coach, if you are just trying to develop, for example, for me, it was when I was leading project teams, I began the development of my emotional intelligence skills. I realized I needed it. And it was later as I began to have success leading my teams with those skills that I realized I wanted to become a certified coach. So if you just want to develop the skills, I share the 2-day seminar that I have actually from next year. Is most likely going to be 3 days because there's a lot of more content that we want to be able to cover. So I recommend the seminar, whether the one in Las Vegas in December or any other ones next year. I recommend that to be able to develop and build the skills. But if you want to be a coach, reach out.
I think he had reached out to you, he said, on LinkedIn. Right. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. Now, another thing here from Musa. Can you have some words about DE and I? I think this is diversity, equity, or equality and inclusion, DE and I. Yeah.
DE and I is an important thing, and here's what I would say. There are a couple of emotional intelligence skills that can help us, definitely help us with that. I did not mention them here. They are not relevant to what we're talking about. One of them is reality testing. One of those skills is reality testing. And we dive deeper during the seminar into this skill. This has to do with the biases and the prejudices that all of us have. And I'm going to say this. Many of us, when we're talking about D and I, we point at other people. We say there's something wrong about the way they look at diversity and inclusion. But before we start pointing fingers at other people, all of us need to look inward. Because all of you, including me, all of you here, including myself, we all have prejudices, we have biases, we have this. Now, it may not show up in the same way, but we need to look inwards and see how it's affecting ourselves. Because when we understand the way our own prejudices and biases, how they work, then we will be able to actually appreciate somehow why other people behave the way they behave.
Mm-hmm.
When we are able to do that, then it will change our mindset in how we engage them in conversations. The problem I've seen is that we do not understand that. We don't understand how we are affected personally. So we don't have a good idea on how it's affecting other people. And because of that, we take positions, we take strong positions, and we expect other people to change. And they take strong positions and they expect you to change.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas change is needed on both sides. So I think the beginning is for us, you and I, to understand where our own biases and prejudices lie. We have it. So as I'm looking at all of you, or you are looking at me, and Irene probably will probably attest to this. During the seminar, I say this emphatically. If you say you are not biased, you are lying to yourself. If I'm saying I don't have prejudices, I'm lying to myself. We all have it. We just need to recognize it. When we recognize it, we begin to have a better appreciation and understanding of other people's biases and prejudices. And then that can help us to engage in conversations that can move us forward. Together.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sunny. You know, I still have a few questions in the Q&A, and unfortunately, our time has come to close the webinar. I apologize for those whose questions were not asked, but I believe you have found this webinar very fruitful and very interesting. You may reach out to Mr. Sunday Faronbi further through the LinkedIn for more information about how you can learn more about the trainings that he is offering. Okay, so before we end this session, we would like to thank you again, Sunny, for your time. I know it's morning. Well, nothing to worry with you. It's morning there in Nebraska. Okay, thank you very much. And we would like to invite you, our attendees, our PMI members, to attend another webinar on Thursday, September 22. Our speaker will be Ms. Nisreen El Saim, and she will talk about environmental impact and green transformation. You may visit our PMI UAE website to register. Also, as we close this webinar tonight, I would like to thank you all for your attendance and participation. We won't say goodbye without saying thank you to the rest of the PMI UAE chapter volunteers who are always behind the successful webinars. This includes our colleagues from membership, outreach, volunteering, finance, and governance. And of course, this webinar will not be successful without your participation, our dear colleagues and PMI UAE members. Until our next webinar, together with my colleague behind the camera, Olumide, and our Director of Events, Rosanna, this is Irene Corpus once again, wishing you all a pleasant evening. Good night.